Thursday, July 30th, 2020. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN Television Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel to Classic 105.5, 105.9, Hot 98.5, 98.7. This morning's To The Point program, we will be facilitating more information and share his thoughts on issues of national importance. Good morning, Joel.
Good morning, Blossom, and it's a pleasure to be here again. I know I was here on Tuesday.
Yes, we appreciate you returning.
And I'm happy to be back here on Thursday. And first of all, I just want to extend a special good morning to your listening and viewing public via social media, YouTube, and those who actually listen in live on air.
Thank you very much. So, Joel, for the people who may not be aware, give us some information on who Joel is and how and why you got into youth leadership and youth activism.
I've been the former CARICOM Youth Ambassador for Grenada, former national. Over the years, I've founded, matter of fact, a few youth organizations, national relations. I also have a very deep passion in agriculture. And a few years ago, I embarked on an agricultural project in Balthazar, inspired by my deceased uncle, Clyde Greenwich. So, you know, I have a deep passion for youth development, for youth inclusion in national discourse. And you know that is my deep passion at the moment. To really, I believe in equity in terms of the distribution of the resources of our country. I believe in justice, and I believe in constitutional liberty. And I have a very strong passion for striving democracy, because I believe in democracy at the core of my heart. You know, so these are some of the issues that you will find me speaking out on in our society.
Speaking out, to actually be at the forefront of the movement to ensure that the youth get the equal piece of the pie, it takes a lot against issues, whichever issue it may be. Do you ever feel that, or you know that I'm doing this for a reason?
You know, the thing about it, I never lived more for cultural heroes and leaders, not just only in Grenada, but around the world. I'm a reader. I read a lot, and I'm able to draw the strength, the courage, the determination from many men and women who have gone before us throughout history. And I was able to draw on from the inspiration at a time when the world needed them the most. And they rose to the occasion despite being arrested. Almost 20 of them had their own properties burned down, despite the smear campaign that was run to discredit them. And they stuck. So for me, I don't live with fear. I know once I'm operating from a very genuine place, and a place of deep passion, a place of deep patriotism, a place of deep service. I know eventually one day that I am actually standing up for today. So I live in no fear. I mean, I know it's easy to be intimidated. It's easy to feel a sense of fear because of the culture. But to me, whatever it brings, I'm prepared to deal with it. And I'm saying to young people, you know, I look at a bully, that kid remain timid. And the more timid that kid remains is the more the bully punks on that kid. So people don't realize by you being fearful, you're now at least telling your oppressor that you're fearful. And your oppressor will use that weakness to intimidate you and instill fear in you. But if your oppressor realizes that you're fearless and you're prepared to stand up, you're prepared to whatever your oppressor brings to you, you're prepared to actually deal with it and face it head on, and you're on grounding and you're very resolute. In most cases, they will think 10 times as to how they approach you. So that is my position. And I think as young people, our country was not built on fear. Our culture was not built by people who was by brave men and women. Our country was built by people who had a strong value system, who had a strong patriotism sort of spirit, and people who just was inspired by change. That was the ultimate goal of these people. And today, some of these people sits in government, and it's quite interesting to know that these were some of these people who embodied those spirits. And today, they are seeing young people doing some of the things that they did, stood up against Gary, stood up against that oppressive regime at the time, and fought for a better Grenada. And now they are sitting on their high horse. and they're seeing young people doing the same thing, the same spirit. They were hypocrites, in my opinion. Constitutional liberty, standing up, to take their rightful place in society, and yet for you're trying to victimize those young people. You're trying to intimidate them, and you're trying to subject them to passivity. That, in my opinion, is hypocrite. And most of these individuals who are really embracing that youthful energy, the passion, the determination, the courage of young people, and they are encouraging young people to continue to fight. Because remember, those who are in position of power right now will soon make a transition. And if young people are not prepared to take on the baton, who are they going to transit to? There will be a huge vacuum, and our country, the sustainability of our future, will be affected. So every Grenadian or every senior citizen who cares about preserving this country, who cares about protecting this country, who cares about the sustainability of our country, will want to encourage activism. They will want to encourage that sort of transformational leadership thinking, that sort of forward-thinking spirit of our youth. We have a serious problem in this country, and we have a leadership crisis, and that must be addressed right now. And if it's the best place to start is with the youth. They set up diamond, you don't want to see it. But after the diamond goes through the polishing, the cutting, the shaping, then it's placed on the shelf, and we all want a piece of diamond. It's the same thing with young people. They will need to go through the polishing, the cutting, the shaping, and the nurturing and harnessing the will and the potential of our youth. But most of the senior people out there, they don't want that, because they are fearful that if they cut and shape and polish and nurture the youth, their position of power and socially, because young people continue to occupy the lower position when you look at the social mobility ladder, in control of us. So we must break that chain. One of the toughest prisons to escape in the world is the prison of your mind, the toughest prison. And want ourselves, our country is going to benefit tremendously from the great vault of talent, creativity, innovation, that our young people possess. Our young people possess that key to unlock the door to future prosperity and sustainability of our country. And as long as those people who are in power, if they care about youth and if they care about the future of Grenada, they will want to ensure that that potential is unlocked, that creativity is unlocked. They will want to embrace youth. They will want to mentor them, nurture them, inspire them. Not a young lady, Michelle Alexander, who, in my opinion, certain action that was recently taken against her is an act of victimization. And we must begin scrutiny. We must not accept these things as Grenadians. We must begin to have what I call years that is not benefiting. We have to change. We have to evolve. Our mindset has to be different. And for too long, we have been trapped in that mental prison by our current leaders who benefit, who consolidate their power on such grounds. And they use the institutions of the state to further strengthen their hold on power. And in my opinion, that is unacceptable. And as a people, we must all understand that we have a civic responsibility. Our community, our country, and to our settlements, when they design. My passion, as I said, is youth, and youth represent 65% of the population, and we at the bottom of the social and economic ladder. And that is scary. Could you imagine young people making that transition into adulthood in poverty, unable to build a home, unable to take care of their family, frustrated, depressed, right? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine 65% of your youth population making that transition? Unemployed, living in poverty, unable to take care of their family, they're frustrated, suffering from personal indignity, their self-esteem and self-worth is trampled upon. Could you imagine what our country will look like 10, 15 years from now? It would be a disaster. So it's every citizen who loves this country, every citizen who loves democracy, every citizen who values the rights of our citizens, the fundamental rights of our citizens, will speak out. And as a young man, I stand true to those principles, and I will continue to speak out, cost it what it may.
Speaking of costing what it will, you alluded to it earlier, victimization. Have you, or what sort of victimization have you faced, and members of your group as well?
When I was serving as the CARICOM Youth Ambassador, even though I would have supported the NMP party during that election of 2013, once the election was over, I took off my political hat. I have never hanged out, had dinner on the obligation time. So once the election was over, and I got back to continue to serve, I was contacted relating to the ambassadorial position. I went through the right procedure. I completed the CARICOM biographical profile. Two other persons were also recommended. At the end, I was appointed to the position. I never picked up my phone and called any members of government, any politician, any MP and say, listen, make me the CARICOM Youth Ambassador. I went through the correct procedure, right? And once I understand that I was appointed, I decided that in this capacity, I was not going to operate as a NMP CARICOM Youth Ambassador or an NDC CARICOM, operate at regional level and international level, and that was my position. So when there were issues that was happening in the country, like the issue of youth unemployment, I was invited to several programs, including programs with Arona, different programs, right? And I spoke out on the issues. I call on the government to address the issues of youth unemployment. I call on the government to provide equal opportunities for youth, to include young people in the decision-making process in the country. I acted in that capacity. And, some persons felt me calling on the government to address the issues of youth unemployment was not right because you're an NMP, and that's how they had put it. You understand that you should not make such a pronouncement. But I was operating in an ambassadorial position, and I have a responsibility. You want to operate from a better place. Those sort of feedback from the public is important. And if there's issues of youth unemployment, and that's the opportunities that young people are looking for, you as a leader, you should be happy, because the feedback would now help you to structure your programs. You understand? But at the end of the day, people were not comfortable with that. But after 2 years, despite being recognized by CARICOM, despite being recognized by Commonwealth, the Ministry of Youth, for me to attend conferences, right? I will also be copied in those emails. But you have to follow proper channel. So they would send it through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I will also in some cases be copied in those emails. And I remember there were one time I had to attend a conference, I think was in Suriname, and I was CC'd in that email, and I forwarded all the persons said to me, the organization said the ministry just needed to forward some information to them. And I forwarded that information to the ministry. And they kept it there and they never forwarded it to the organization. And therefore Grenada was the only country. I'm not in it for me. So they were not literally victimizing me. That was not going to break me. I continued with doing what I had to do as normal. And there were many instances like that when letters came. For example, as a high-profile meeting here, the CARICOM Secretariat wanted me to represent the CARICOM Bureau of Youth Ambassador, the entire COP, the CARICOM Youth Ambassador COP at that meeting. Invitation. And after the CARICOM, and those sort of instances. So I've experienced that. So when I meet young people and they say, Joel, I'm afraid because I have been victimized. I said, I understand what you're saying, but how can we change it to prevent other young people in the future from being victimized by the powers that be? And if one voice, as in the case how we spoke out on the bill issue and people using their various social media platform, that is what all that does is literally silence the voices of our people. And that's how dictators operate. And we're not living in a dictatorship. We're living in a democracy. We need people with different perspective. And that is all part of development. That is all part of developing intellectual society. Because some of the things that are happening is more intellectual societies, right? I mean, yes, Barbados have one of the oldest democracy in our Caribbean. I mean, in the America of their whole democracy and the whole system of governance. But we have to get to that place. We cannot just continue to accept it. Well, I don't want to be victimized. I don't want to be victimized. Are you thinking about your children or grandchildren down the road that would be victimized if we don't actually break this old cultural code? You understand? And usher in something different. So we need to start. People need to become more active. We need more active citizens. Active citizen, not just only when a major issue like the bill or like the act of the incident that happened, and cannot only wait until these incidents to be a patriot, to have that sort of uproar. There are many issues in the country that is happening that people are lit. I know people, Blossom, who are literally struggling right now, right? They are barely able to meet their basic commitment. They cannot take care of their family. They're underemployed. They don't know where the next meal is coming from. But because of blind political loyalty, they will sit in the corner. That is, I cannot find a word to describe that, Blossom. I cannot find a word to describe it.
I agree with you, especially the parting in relation to this. In your fight against this bill, even though it was withdrawn from Parliament sitting yesterday, the discussion still continues with government holding consultations with the plan to table it once again. With the protest yesterday, what do you think came out of it, and do you think it was effective enough to let the voices be heard?
Yeah, I think it was very effective. And let me make this one point. You see, the government or most of our politicians are very sensationalism or sensational people, or we like sensationalism, right? So this is a hot topic. Everybody jump on it. You know, that sort of bandwagonist kind of mindset. We jump on the topic. And after a day or two, we're looking for the next hot topic again to jump on. So they're on it. And as our young people, we are woke. We are now operating from a place of social consciousness, right? We have seen what have happened in the past. We have seen issues arise, and government, they sneak in that bill or whatever decision that like, for example, with the Cameron Park, I remember speaking at a town hall meeting, standing up to save as part of this Save the Cameron Park committee, right? And there was a lot of protests around the country about that. And then as soon as the people shifted their attention to something else, the same Cameron Park thing came up, you know? You understand that the Cameron Park was being sold. So young people, we have been watching. We have been watching all of these things. We discussed it among ourselves, and we realized it was not a total withdrawal of the bill. It was just a delay of the bill. And then when we platform and trying to justify the government's position as to the necessity of that bill, when the people think that this bill is a violation of the constitutional rights of our citizens, we had our local lawyers, who are brilliant lawyers, in my opinion, who also came out and spoke about the bill and mental rights of the citizens as enshrined within our constitution. But then you had one person, Mr. DeAge, he was the only lawyer that was defending a bill when regional experts was the only person coming out and say something quite differently. So it was quite evident that this government was very firm in wanting to push this bill. And as young people, despite what the government would have said, we felt it was very important for us to organize this protest, to let the government know we are woke on the issues in the country in the past, in which people talked about it for one day, and after the next hot topic, they diverted their attention. We stand very firm in our position. Our legislation that is in place, that the Constitution gives you the right in the case of public health emergency or the other emergencies. We believe that the government can use those legislation and whatever necessary amendments that the government needs to take to beef up our surveillance on our port of entry and our screening capacity and testing capacity and quarantine capacity. We believe that if the amendment has to beef up those areas, then we can appreciate that, because we believe that our citizens should be protected and our country should be safe, and that's our position.
Based on past experience, how optimistic are you that your voice would actually be heard and taken into consideration in pushing for change?
I'm very optimistic now more than ever. The reason being because it's the first time. In the past, I felt like I was alone in the wilderness, speaking out as the lone young person. But today I'm seeing the like of Michelle Alexander, who has been a very powerhouse, a strong young lady who is standing up for the young people of the country. I'm seeing young people like Leroy Frederick, aka Mosquito Man, people like Marcel Augustin Lewis, who gave a very strong speech outside of the Parliament building yesterday. I'm seeing young men like Kimon Nimrod, who is now speaking out, people like Ahmed, who is also speaking, and I'm seeing has now grown to over 100 young people. And that movement continues to grow. So I feel very optimistic. So even while you're asleep, Blossom, young people are in the WhatsApp group having these conversations right now. And this has never happened before in the recent history of our country. And I feel very optimistic. And it was evident yesterday, young people on the center of this whole protest outside the Parliament building. That has not happened in recent time. So I feel very optimistic that young people understand that we have a role to play in shaping and designing our future, and that we are not going to just wait until tomorrow. The future begins now. And we must prepare today to take our rightful place in society tomorrow.
Let's take a quick break, Joel, and then we're going to come back with the discussion. This conversation is big up your whole self. We're going to take a quick break on To The Point, and then we'll be right back. This is Classic GBN Hot 98.
Hi, I'm Francis Urias Peters. To really know who I am, you must look at the plays that I've written over the past 30 years because they reflect hard work, discipline, and my inner beliefs. Now, these values were shaped by my earlier bringing because I was always curious about my roots and my identity as a Caribbean man. Now, I'm a good listener, and K105 has always been a great source of education and entertainment. Now, while the station name may have changed over the years, it has always provided valuable information which enabled me as a playwright to document and to celebrate our history, our behavior.
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies, capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11, K105.5 and 105.9. Hot 98.5 and 98.7. GBN Television and everywhere.
Let's Cook Grenada, a practical culinary guide to local cuisine. Learn new ways to prepare your favorite foods across the island. Let's Cook, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11, GBN's Facebook page, and GBN's YouTube channel. If you miss it, catch the repeat Thursdays at 10 a.m. and Sundays at 3:30 p.m.
Hello and welcome to the OECS Link.
A conversation is a talk. Informal but informed.
Hello, Dr. Jules.
Hi, how are you?
Between two or more people in which news and ideas are exchanged.
A lot of adjustments have to happen at every level.
Coming to you from around the Eastern Caribbean, join us every week on this station as we build relationships that uplift our region.
And I would encourage persons to go to the OECS Facebook page.
Tell us what's happening in your country and your community.
Find us on all social media platforms.
Email your pictures and videos to media@oecs.int.
The OECS Link is powered by Republic Bank.
Feel good facts.
Welcome back to The Point. We're speaking with youth leader and youth advocate Joel Greenidge on issues of national importance. At this point, we're going to open the phone lines for our viewers and listeners who may have questions for Joel. 435-2041, that's the landline number. Queries, concerns on the GBN Television Facebook page and the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel. Let's go to our first caller. Good morning, caller.
A pleasant good morning. I must indeed say that young man has some very brilliant ideas. But my question is, or my concern rather, is a protest march the only way to, fight the government? What about the ballot box? What about the change of the constitution? I think these suggestions are good. The youth must make sure that they hold on to these things. These are very important. If at all you have to fight a government, that is the ways. Not only one way alone protest march. That is my contribution. I hope that would be taken aboard. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Joel?
Yeah, well, and that's a very valid point that the caller would have made, and I think the caller is really it's in line with what we are trying to achieve. So if you looked yesterday at the T-shirts that we were actually wearing, right? If you look very closely, it says to the youth that your voter's ID card is your weapon. So that's a very valuable point. Even though we were there at the protest and we were there to protest the coronavirus disease control bill 2020, but right beneath the T-shirt we had a nice little box, and it stated your voter ID card is your weapon. And just to highlight what the caller is saying, in coming weeks or months, my organization, 2030 Youth Grenada, we would launch a major project, and it would be basically a youth voters campaign. And what we seek to do is really voters education, right? Basically, the project will focus on sensitizing young people as to the importance of voting, giving them the history of how that right to vote was won, and that power that they have in voting to really effect change, and how voting being a healthy part of a democracy, and how we can institute change through voting. It will also focus on encouraging young people. So the project will run like this. Every time a young person goes and get their voter's ID card, they will take a photo of it, or a selfie with their voter's card in their hand, and they will actually post it on Facebook. So it's a project that we will actually launch very soon. Also, part of the project will be to educate young people as to the current way of voting, like how do you complete your ballots? Because you find during elections, a lot of the ballots normally are spoiled because a lot of the young people have never been educated as to the correct way to complete their ballot paper. So you see that there happens to be a lot of spoiled votes. So wanting to take a proactive approach and to let young people understand the correct way to complete the ballot so as to decrease the amount of spoiled votes so that their voice can be heard during election. 65%, if we have a 65% voting population, our goal is to get up to 60% of the youth to come out in the next election. And we will embark on this project. And I've reached out to a few of my regional friends who are experts in that field, who will to be part of the campaign to educate our youth on the importance of voting in an election, and also the correct way to complete their ballot paper. So we as we say to the young people right out there right now, your ID card is your voter's ID card is your weapon, right? So thank you, caller, for making that comment.
Back to the phone line. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Good morning, sir. Yeah, I just want to make a contribution, please. As it relates to the question of the bill, the COVID bill, we have to be realistic, every one of us, in acknowledging that COVID is a deadly enemy. And we are in a democracy, we have a constitution, and based on what the government wants to achieve in ensuring that we do not have community spread after all our borders are open, protect the vast majority of us from a legal point of view. Now, in the process of doing that, some of our freedom must be compromised. It happens in countries that have Chinarong, etc., and a significant number of our citizens are not wearing the mask, they are not obeying the protocols, etc., etc. So this in and of itself tells it. You know what I honestly think? In order to solve the problem here in Grenada, I've said that before, we need an intelligent dictatorship. Some of our constitutional rights must be compromised if the bill is going to be effective to fight the virus. I think we are reacting in that way because no one has died. The second phase, according to the medical professionals and the medical scientists, when phase 2 comes, it is inevitable, it will come, and folks begin to die, then we are going to realize what's happening. I am not saying this that the government should move arbitrarily and destroy all of us constitutional rights. This is not the main objective of the government. One mistake, and I want to fault them for, is not having sufficient consultation. But in order to be effective with the COVID bill, some form of our constitutional rights must be compromised. Otherwise, it will be ineffective. We are going to have chaos, and the death toll will rise to unprecedented proportion.
Thank you.
Just listening to the caller. Caller, thanks for your comments, right? I am not for an intellectual dictatorship. In no way would I ever support dictatorship. Considering what we have been experiencing outside of COVID, the level of dictatorship, giving government such power at this time will further lead to, it will have unintended consequences for our country greater than COVID-19, and I will tell you that for certain. I believe that the regulations that has been used during the lockdown period and the height of the coronavirus situation, pandemic in the country, was very effective. I think our people had complied with the regulations, and I think our people for the great job that we have done to bring our cases to zero. At the time, well, I know we have just recently had one case, but I think I must commend the people of Grenada for the manner in which they have actually dealt with this COVID-19. The unity, the compassion, the empathy shown by our people. I mean, our medical professionals, they were exceptional. And I think we have done very well, and I think the regulations has worked. As I said, I will continue to emphasize the fact that we are about to open our borders. The great emphasis must be placed on our border to prevent the virus from coming in, because based on prior to the case yesterday, our medical experts said that a lot being having that level of freedom which was restricted from us over the last few months. We have seen cases of suicide in the country, right? I mean, that is unprecedented. 4 cases of suicide in 1 year. We have seen the level of increase in depression in our country, and the reason is the fact is Grenada and strong knit communities. Right, and that lockdown period has affected a lot of people in a major way. Some people have lost their livelihood, so that sort of relaxed their mind because of the stress and the pressure. We don't want to have an increase in suicide. COVID may not kill us, because based on the World Health Organization, COVID-19, we had 23 persons came down with a virus. No one died. Right, so that level of fear that is being instilled in our people. I'm not saying that people should drop our guard, but the level of fear that is being. So, Mr. Caller, we don't need an intellectual democracy. What we need is a collective effort, a collaborative effort with virus from coming in the country. If I had my way, I would have kept the borders closed, because since we had zero COVID, as soon as we open up our border, I understand we tried to build a Grenada of self-sufficiency in the meantime until the COVID on tourism. Why not? This is a good opportunity for us to build our economy and new pillars, right? And this is the opportunity this COVID-19 crisis has actually brought us, to develop a Grenada of self-sufficiency. So we don't need an intellectual democracy, I mean an intellectual dictatorship. And there's no such thing.
Question. At Wednesday's protest, we saw Joel and the other young people standing with the National Democratic Congress. Will they just come?
30 Youth Grenada, we had planned a protest on Wednesday. And we were not aware that there were any organizations. Well, I know at some point I saw the Bar Association would have actually put out some statement about some sort of protest, but we were not aware that there were any other organization, where it be political or civil society organization, that had staged a protest on that day. It was just young people, as you can see, that we were all uniform because we were wearing our T-shirts, and we came out there to let our voices be heard on that matter. And the NDC political organization was there. I guess they shared the same sentiments on the bill, and they were there to also lend their support to the cause. So that was basically it.
Back to the phone lines. Good morning, caller. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to hear you. Good to see you. I'm looking at you and I'm hearing you. I just want to say to this gentleman, he seemed to have been giving some hope to our young people, because I've been very concerned about our youth, the way they were going, and there was, to me, no direction. So it's a breath of fresh air. It's an encouragement to me, direction and some hope in their lives. I really am impressed with him. I like the stand he's taking, and I like to hear what he said, that he is not going to attach himself to any politician, because when you do that, you become their slave. You have to do what they say. You have to toe the line. And if he continues as he has spoken, there is hope for the country and there is hope for the youth. And I usually pray for the young people of a country, but I want to specifically put you on my prayer list and pray for you, because you don't know what you will face in Grenada. You don't know what you will be signing up against. I know what you're signing up against. And I'm going to be praying specifically for you, because I want God to protect you and to protect your group of young people. God bless you all. And remember, in all you're doing, do not let God out. If you don't have God in your life, all your works will be futile, because Satan is stronger than you without God in your life. So get God in your lives, continue to do what you're doing, but do not let God out of what you're doing, because the only hope is in God. God bless you, and thanks for your input and in saving our young people.
And a special thanks to the caller, and I really appreciate the prayers. Matter of fact, I've had at least 5 people from America who would have actually reached out to me, matter of fact, via Facebook, and had contacted me and extended their prayers, So I really appreciate that, and I'm a praying young man. I'm very grounded spiritually, because I my uncle beheaded on his property in Balthazar. I know many people would remember that incident. A guy walked into a police station and emptied 2 heads on the table, and that person was my uncle. He was not just my uncle, he was my mentor. He was my best friend. The source of strength that I have today, I was able to also draw it from him, because he was that strong person, that strong leader. So I know what his evil is like, and even during that midst of that whole situation, being there as the person who took charge of everything that was happening, I knew what evil is like, and I knew you will always be up against evil. And I pray in woman, and she also always said to me, son, you have a very strong spirit. And even I remember one priest said that to me, you have a very strong spirit. And I appreciate it. They're very big.
There's another WhatsApp question, Joel. Somebody's asking, you said that our borders, if it were up to you, the borders would remain closed. What ideas do you have to provide some form of income for the hundreds of workers that are currently home?
Well, I think this is a good opportunity for us to leverage technology. I mean, let's forget, for example, there are many countries around the world where their borders were closed and where they're on lockdown for years, for months, and a lot of economic activities were still happening via the World Wide Web. I mean, technology has now provided, we are living in a technological age. We are about to usher in a global digital economy. And I think it's a good opportunity for Grenada to begin because young people are inclined with technology. But in Grenada, we have not built the capacity for young people to really embrace technology. So I'm in contact with someone from the UK, and we're about to launch a project very soon, which will be basically an educational project to educate young people on how they can use technology to create employment opportunity. Because there are a lot of companies out there who are also outsourcing workers from the Caribbean. Like, for example, Clare Harbor is closed. I mean, they're not open, but a lot of the workers are working from home using technology, right? So I'm saying there's a lot of opportunities for young people in that area, and it will be sustainable because, for example, what happens if we overcome this COVID-19 crisis and our young people go back to work in the tourism sector, and then 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 8 years from now, we have a major crisis, our young people will be back in the same position. So we are talking about sustainability, and the tourism sector is a very volatile sector. It's susceptible to internal or external shocks. So we must begin to become creative. And that's why in times of crisis, in times like these, we need creative leaders. We need inspirational leaders, right? For example, agriculture. I look for St. Vincent. St. Vincent does not have mass tourism, but their economy is less impacted in the midst of this crisis than Grenada. It's only recently Sandals announced to build the beach, Sandals Beach in St. Vincent, right? And so they did not have mass tourism, but the economy was less impacted than Grenada. When I looked at the CARICOM report or the Caribbean Development Bank, or even the IMF report from the money within the Caribbean at the bottom of countries like Haiti. So at the end of the day, this is a good opportunity for us to rebuild and not put so much focus or emphasis on agriculture, but look at other creative sectors in the economy. We have not been able to draw from the innovation, the ingenuity, and the creativity or the technological savviness of our youth. And this is a good opportunity for us right now.
I have a call on the line. Let me take the call first. Good morning, caller. Morning, how you do?
Just quiet, and good morning to Greenage. And I want to say to you, more pray, more power, my brother. I want to support Miss Jeremiah. And I want you all as young people. It's not an easy road for young people now, my brother, but by God's grace, all you will make it. I would like you all to go out in all your community. When we look around this in our community, there is so much of rum shop. And some of the young men, like it's by the bars they live in. So if you all could go out, reach out to them with love I doing my little piece. And sometimes when you talk to these young people and them, what the feedback they will give you, you could see they need help. Look at, we have a place in Maribo, the agriculture place there. So much could be done for young people in Grenada. Sometimes when I pass and I see the doors lock up, all the chains, some of them rotting and the place just falling apart. Just open up this place. So much of young people, have them there. You know how it will feel that young people all in the morning go in the field, see about the animal. When you come back, get a nice shower, get something to eat from the same farm, and then you go in a classroom. You know, that could build the young people of this country, but instead of it just falling apart. So my brother, by God's grace and my prayers are asking you all to please, as young people, all you could meet them sometime even more than me, because young people like to listen to young people. Sometimes I'll meet some of them, and when I see them, the condition, some of them will listen, some will get angry, but we cannot let them down.
Okay.
Please reach out to the young people.
Thank you, caller.
And thank you, caller, for your point. And I think your point is very, very valid. And I just want to add something to this. You see, in our society here, we tend to be very reactive to problems. But I am about solution. And I'm not about patching problems. Over the years, all we have done as a country is patch problems. We have never really got to the core of the problem or the root of the problem and see where the problem is and how can we lay a solid foundation to address the problem. So we need to look at these of effects. Young people in the bars drinking, young people on the block, violence, crime, increased drug use among our youth. All of these things are just effects. What are the root causes? And in my opinion, systematic poverty, systematic oppression, our institutions that are supposed to protect our youth are compromised. And we need to understand it. Look at the structure of families in the country. That is also compromised. We have even got our families to be divided. These things have been, it's an institutionalized system of controlling our people. Look, for example, you're in the same home, brothers and sisters, husband and wife. And these people have even been able to penetrate the homes with broken communities, which leads to a broken society and the consequences as we are currently experiencing. Years ago, as I have done my research, when you had strong family structures or strong family values, or families were united, when you had strong community groups or strong community and you had treated, you had society, you had a better Grenada. So we have to look at where the problem lies, and we have to call it for what it is. The institutions that are in place, the institutionalized oppression, the systematic oppression, the systematic poverty. These young people are home. They have nothing to do. They are frustrated. They are depressed. So what they do to pass the time, to deal with their stress, because they don't want to go and chop somebody, they go to the rum shop, they drink the rum, and it helps to cloud their mind from staring at their reality in the face. This is the fact. And hence the reason I had friends outside Grenada who said to me, Joel, looking at the youth unemployment numbers in Grenada and the level of poverty, the high level of poverty in Grenada, why it is not reflective in crimes. And I said, that's a very valid observation. I said, one, our people is very passive. Our people is very tolerant. I said, our people is very supportive. And I said, the fact that we are so shocked with their boys, and for that moment, all their pain and all their stress just kind of is clouded for that moment. Or they may go to the rum shop, they take out to drink with their boys, and then their mind is clouded for a moment. And by the time they go back home, they're in a more relaxed state. I said, but if our people was not that sociable, and our people, we didn't have that strong spirit among us, that level of love and that level of tolerance, I said Grenada would have been a nightmare. We would not have wanted to see it. So I applaud our youth for, in instead of the pain that they're faced with, the stress. I mean, some of them are up to the peak, but they're not channeling that aggression and pain and hurt to hurt their brothers and sisters. They may quicker go have a drink or go sit down on a block and old talk with their friends. And then they go home and they have to confront the reality that there's no food at home, there's no electricity, they don't have a proper running water, they don't have proper housing condition, they've been unemployed for a year, 2 years. This is a reality. Young people are getting up every morning, staring all of these things right in the eyes. Unemployment, no food, no money to pay the bills, cannot pay their rent. They're staring all of these things in the eye. And under those circumstances, these are breaking points. But it's not reflective in our society because our young people, they're maintaining that inner strength to face those pain and those hurts with a loving heart and tolerance and love for their fellow brothers and sisters. And that is critically important.
Joel, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program, but I have to say this interview has been very enlightening. Thank you very much for being our guest this morning. I have lots of comments here on the WhatsApp, the social media, Facebook, YouTube, commending you for the work that you're doing and continue to do what you're doing, leading the charge for the youth. I still consider myself a young person. Continue doing what you're doing. Thank you very much, Joel. Before I go, just let me ask you this. Do you have political aspirations?
You know, many people have asked me that question. I've seen many comments via social media where people would have put that in the chat, Joel for primary, Joel for NP, Joel for this. But the truth of the fact is, I have not thought that far. I mean, I love people, I love politics, I love development, but I would never want to get involved in politics or get involved in governance with a group of people that does not share that vision and same passion that I have for Grenada, that I have for people-centered development sort of focus, youth development sort of focus, national development sort of focus, and good governance. That is what I believe in. And once I don't find a group of people or any political organization that share that same view, I would not be interested in politics at that level.
Okay. Thank you very much. Got it. Thank you very much, Joel. Continue to stay safe and continue doing what you're doing. Have yourself a good day.
Same to you.
Thank you. We'd like to thank youth leader, youth advocate Joel Greenidge for being our guest this morning. Very enlightening conversation. We'll surely invite him back to be a guest on a future programs that we can continue this discussion. Thank you, our viewers and listeners, once again for tuning in as well to The Point this morning. Appreciate your participation. Joseph is up next with Mid-Morning Buzz. He'll take you to midday. I'll be back with you tomorrow, God willing. Until then, continue to stay safe and do what you need to protect yourself and your family. Have a good one, everybody.